Okay. Again, good morning, and thank you for joining us for the 2025 DC Public Service Commission Cybersecurity Briefing. The protection of utility assets across the nation has become increasingly important. Cybersecurity has moved to the forefront as reports of ransomware attacks, disruption of substations, and theft of consumer information become more prevalent. The energy industry increasingly becomes more reliant on digital infrastructure and AI-driven systems, making it a prime target for cyber attack. As technologies develop, public utility commissions play a vital role in ensuring that the utilities maintain cybersecurity best practices for both digital and physical infrastructure. Today's briefing seeks to continue an open dialogue between the commission and utilities we regulate to ensure utility infrastructure remains secure as they provide safe, reliable, and affordable services in their district. Before we begin, I want to highlight the fact that this is a public briefing, and so that any confidential matters that are that come up, we will not be answering them here, but can certainly be discussed offline. And the any questions that may arise, they should be public in nature. So, having said that, let me turn to my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Beverly and Commissioner Traby, to see if they have any opening remarks.
My only opening remark would be that I think this is an important thing for utility companies to participate in it so the public understands, we understand what you're doing to address these threats. It's also important, if I could ask you to weave into the things you say, some of the new technologies that we're dealing with may or may not pose issues for you to deal with, and to the extent that you can explain what it is you're doing about it, I'd appreciate hearing it in this public session. And if there's something you need to say in a private meeting, I'd be happy to hear that too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Beverly. Good morning to everyone, and I'm glad to see you here again for this very important briefing. I think, as it's been noted earlier, this is a quickly evolving and ever-evolving landscape in which we find ourselves. And so I think that continuous conversation around matters like this, and we have these every year, is extremely important as we move forward and understand from our perspective what we can do as regulators to help both of the utilities in support of the critical missions that they have in securing safe, reliable services here in the District of Columbia and maintaining the confidentiality of a lot of very, very vulnerable information. So I want to thank you for being here today and participating in this hearing. And without further ado, Mr. Chairman, ready to get going.
Thank you. Before we begin our presentations, I would like to set out a few additional ground rules. First, today's discussion will be recorded, so we ask the audience to remain silent when presenters are speaking. Also, presenters, when speaking, please introduce yourself and state your organization. To speak, press the buttons on the mic and wait for the mic to turn green before speaking. We'll hold all questions until after both presenters go, in case there are questions that are most appropriately answered by both utilities. I would also call Mr. Morrison from WGL if he would like to come up and sit as well at the table. So to begin, I'll first start by introducing Mr. Scott Franklin, who is the Director of Security Architecture in the engineering team at Exelon Corporation. Mr. Franklin has been at Exelon since March of 2011 and currently contributes over 30 years of cybersecurity experience to Exelon's corporate and information security services team. Mr. Franklin's areas of expertise include cryptography, cybersecurity program development and implementation, as well as network security engineering. Most recently, Mr. Franklin has led the development and implementation of the SASE and Zero Trust solutions for Exelon. So at this time, I'm the floor to you, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you very much, Chairman Thompson, for the introduction. My name is Scott Franklin. Good morning. I'm very pleased to be here. I am, as stated, the Director of Security Architecture and Engineering for Exelon, and I am part of our Cyber and Information Security Services program, which provides security services for Exelon and all of its utilities across all of the territories in which we operate. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak here today on behalf of PEPCO and Exelon regarding our organizational preparedness for cyber and physical threats, and I will be happy to address some of the challenges we encounter day to day with some of the newer technologies. I know there's some significant interest in the cloud technologies and specifically in artificial intelligence, so I'll be happy to address what I can in those areas. As you all well know, Exelon is a Fortune 250 company and the nation's largest utility company, serving more than 10 million customers through 6 fully regulated transmission and distribution utilities, including Atlantic City Electric, Baltimore Gas and Electric, Commonwealth Edison, Delmarva Power and Light, Pico Energy Company, and Potomac Electric Power Company. To help exemplify our commitment to cyber defense and threat management, we have introduced an additional board member, Mr. David G. DeWalt, to our board of directors. Mr. DeWalt is the founder and CEO of Night Dragon, which is a venture capital and advisory firm focused on cybersecurity, safety, security, and privacy. Very active in cybersecurity throughout his career, bringing a wealth of knowledge to cybersecurity. We look very much forward to working with him and gaining from his experience in that. At Exelon, as well as across all of the utilities we serve, we're committed to providing cybersecurity, physical security, as well as personnel security programs to protect our infrastructure, our people, our customers, and the communities we have the privilege to serve by using risk-based and defense-in-depth approaches to providing cyber, physical, and personnel security at all times. 2025 has presented a challenge and will continue to present a challenge for us due to the expansion of the cyber threat landscape. You can just turn on your television and look at what's going on in the world to see what's happening. In light of those increased threats, we have committed to an increased focus on our zero trust security model, which I'll be happy to cover a bit more in depth in a few minutes. Within our own cybersecurity teams at Exelon and across the utilities we serve, our roles span across a very wide number of areas, including our 24/7 monitoring and security operations center, identity and access management, ensuring that people have just the access they need to do their jobs and no more. Our third-party security, which helps us ensure that our vendors are doing the things and only the things they're supposed to be doing with our data when they have access to our systems. Compliance, make sure that whatever our regulatory needs are, they're being met the way they're supposed to be met. Vulnerability management, to make sure that if there's a problem with an application or a system, we're aware of it and we're taking steps to identify it and remediate it in a timely manner. And then with architecture and engineering, to making sure we're building security in from the get-go, not trying to bolt it on as an afterthought. So if we could go to our first slide, if you could. The Cyber and Information Security Services organization, of which I represent today, is overall responsible for the governance, providing the governance of cybersecurity. And we do that by providing an enterprise-wide, risk-based and intelligence-driven program that is based on a defense-in-depth approach that we utilize to secure our enterprise assets and information, not just at the corporate level, but for PEPCO and all of the utilities that we serve. We have the utmost unwavering support to do this at the most senior levels of leadership across our company. And in fact, Exelon identifies cybersecurity as one of our top enterprise risks. And we define it not just as a cybersecurity incident targeting Exelon, but also as an incident targeting any of our third-party suppliers that could result in any type of significant or adverse impact to our Exelon data systems or customers. So we've taken a great deal of effort and steps to look at not just internally at our own systems, but those of the suppliers and the vendors with whom we interact and share data in real time to make sure that our data, no matter where it resides, has the proper controls and safeguards in place around it. The incumbent in any governance program is the responsibility to measure it. How are we doing? Are we doing a good job, which can help us identify any gaps and help us then identify improvements that might need to be made. So to do that, we developed some key risk indicators that help us measure the effectiveness of our security governance and risk management programs. And that helps us identify changes in our risk exposure and then allows us to create actionable risk intelligence for management and support evaluations of our controls and mitigation effectiveness, and then help us inform the board of any actions that we might need to take to improve our own systems and mitigation actions. And we do this through visual representation to the board on a quarterly, if not more frequent basis as needed. So what role does the Security Information Program play in our organization? We We deliver this governance through some strategic imperatives that are listed on this first slide. I'm not going to drain this, and I will cover the SASE or Zero Trust implementation in greater depth in a coming slide. But I want to address what Commissioner Beverly brought up through one of these strategic imperatives, which is reducing attack surface. We've seen a lot of interest in cloud technologies and artificial intelligence. We have a robust technology governance framework that we've implemented across Exelon and its utilities. And as part of that, the security organization has implemented significant policies, guardrails, review requirements, and control requirements to ensure that before any technology is procured, let alone implemented in production, there is a rigorous and thorough review that is conducted to ensure that whatever is being looked at meets our standards, our control requirements, any regulatory concerns are addressed, data privacy, et cetera, before it is given the green light to be purchased, designs are reviewed, and then it is deployed into our environment. We've developed additional policies specific to cloud and artificial intelligence with very specific guardrails for those types of technologies. And there's no default approval. For example, in the cloud space, we've approached it through a cloud smart methodology. Does it make sense to do so? Are there any regulatory prohibitions to putting a type of data or a system in the cloud? Does it make sense from a financial perspective? Are there any data sensitivity concerns, scalability, support? Are there any concerns from where the data might be accessed globally, et cetera? And the same is true for artificial intelligence systems. Do we have the right controls and classifications in place for the data that these artificial intelligence systems are going to be consuming, at a voracious rate? So we've taken great strides to ensure that the data and systems that we're facing through these emerging and rapidly evolving technologies are exquisitely reviewed, and the right controls are in place to make sure that we're not adding to our threat or risk landscape in that regard. I do want to also address one of our other significant strategic imperatives that is an underlying risk that we deal with, and I think our colleagues as well, which is attracting, developing, and retaining top talent. It doesn't matter how good your tools or processes are, you have to have the right people that know what they're doing. And I'm very proud of what I'm going to talk about now. We've partnered with PS2G and the Walter Reed Infrastructure Academy locally in DC. We've launched a cybersecurity training program in March of 2023, administered by the PS2G team. And in 2024, 2 additional cohorts were launched, one focused on cyber, a second focused on software testing. And this program includes a 15-week classroom training followed by a hands-on apprenticeship for underserved DC residents, creating pathways for successful students for positions in the community. And we've had great success with this in Exelon and our utilities. I'm proud to say there's several members that have successfully completed this program that are on my teams, and they're performing spectacularly well. We continue to support this program with great success, and it's a testament to this program and the students that have succeeded in this program as well. I also want to touch on other topics of interest in our strategic imperatives. Our sustained security governance and compliance. We do this through a number of means, as well as our incident response and monitoring and compliance programs. Exelon continues to hold a number of incident response, both live and tabletop type exercises on an annual basis. In fact, we completed one of our largest live exercises just last evening across all of our utilities, which helps us understand any gaps we might have in our ability to identify gaps in our incident response programs, and then make necessary changes to improve ourselves for the next time. So we work there as well. The strategic imperatives, again, are our high-level initiatives that we execute within cybersecurity so that we can understand, ensure these identified risks are managed in accordance with our governance and our risk management programs. Next slide, please. Who is Exelon as a utility? We are 6 T&D only utilities. We operate within 7 regulatory jurisdictions, and all of the programs and strategic imperatives that I just mentioned, we apply across all of our jurisdictions and all of the utilities that we serve. We're 20,000 employees across all of our operating companies, specifically in PEPCO, in a $7.8 billion rate base with territories in both Maryland and DC. 10.7 million electric and gas customers served across our territories, basically the largest T&D utility organization in the country. Won't really drain the slide. It's a bunch of numbers, if you will. We can move on to the next slide. This is the linchpin of how the Cyber and Information Security Program delivers our governance and risk management services and capabilities for Exelon and its utility organizations. This slide represents our implementation of our NIST cybersecurity framework. This is our enterprise standards governance model. It aligns with the NIST National Cybersecurity Framework version 2.0. It is basically a set of guidelines and best practices designed to help organizations such as Exelon manage and reduce our cyber risk. It's structured around 5 basic functions, and those are identify, protect, respond, and recover. And these represent a life cycle approach to cybersecurity, which helps guide us through understanding our risks, implementing appropriate safeguards, identifying and detecting appropriate threats, and then guiding us in responding to incidents and then recovering operations should they be impacted. This provides a structured and systematic approach to our cybersecurity program, and it allows us to tailor this framework to our particular needs. Our approach might be different from another organization's approach. Again, it's specific to our needs. As you can see, the various programs identified on this slide are tailored to each of the 5 main cycles. These program documents are reviewed on an annual basis with all of the appropriate stakeholders to ensure that as threats are identified or risks are identified in real time, our programs change as those threats and risks change to make sure we are staying current and adapt in real time. And as we adapt or as we execute our incident response drills and whatnot, the changes to these programs are incorporated into those drills, et cetera. Move on to the next slide as well. One of the strategic imperatives that I mentioned on a previous slide around SASE and zero trust, this is a truly transformational imperative when it comes to risk management, incident response, threat management as well. SASE stands for Secure Access Service Edge, zero trust. And why does this matter? Why do we care about this? For the first time, we're going to have a unified security and network solution that will help keep our users and our data protected in a unified manner wherever those users are and however they are connecting to our system. So whether you're at your corporate office, your home office, at a cafe, your user experience will be highly secure and it will be identical. You will have the same security safeguards applied regardless of where you are, and we will have much better granularity that will be integrated, enhanced security capabilities, threat detection and prevention, risk management, and granular visibility to a level that we've not seen before to the end user device, end to end, from your individual device all the way to whatever service or system that you are attempting to access. So not just from a security perspective, but also from an operational perspective, security and our infrastructure, our IT organizations will have significant benefits coming from this system. This is a multi-year journey. And why does this matter? Basically, this is a trust nothing by default matter. Normally, you would log into your network and you get whatever you would need. This is going to challenge that model and that paradigm. You will be challenged when you need to access anything. You will need to have explicit permission to access any different system. It will no longer be a default permit. You will need explicit permission. Think of it as role-based access control. You will need explicit access to get whatever you need to access. And it's not just based on users. It will be your device. Is your laptop supposed to be doing this? Or is your mobile device or your home computer supposed to be doing this? I'm going to add a lot of additional protections to address a lot of the emerging risks that we are seeing in real time in our environment. And this little model, this little pictograph does an excellent job of demonstrating what that new versus the old model looks like. It also helps us address the new, more hybrid work model we're dealing with. Pre-pandemic, most people were in the office 4 or 5 days a week. Now we have a much more diversified hybrid work environment, people working from remote locations. This is going to ensure that we have a much more secure work environment regardless of your location. Move on to our final slide. I want to touch on with our external partnerships. This goes to our incident response as we increase our dependency on incident response to be prepared for the emerging threat landscape. We continue to strengthen and grow our external partnership. We leverage our partnerships and our direct relationships with local, state, and federal agencies, law enforcement organizations to facilitate information sharing. And I want to stress that that's bi-directional. It's not just us receiving information from those agencies, it's us also sharing information with those agencies and groups as appropriate. We also establish those direct lines of communication and sharing collaboration efforts with other utilities of similar size. So when appropriate, we will reach out to other utilities. Think of it as mutual assistance type relationships to make sure that if we are in the middle of an incident, other utilities are aware of what we are experiencing to help them better prepare or respond to similar types of incidents. That concludes my formal presentation, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. We will now turn to Washington Gas, and we have Mr. Jim Morrison, who is Director of Cybersecurity Operations in BISO Utilities at AltaGas WGL. Mr. Morrison possesses 20-plus years of experience in cybersecurity roles supporting government, military, and commercial sectors, both in the U.S. and overseas. He has built and run many enterprise-level security operations centers focused on incident detection and response. Mr. Morrison also has broad experience in cyber threat intelligence, cybersecurity controls, vulnerability assessment, insider threat operations, and cyber architecture and engineering. This time, Mr. Morrison, go ahead. Thank you.
Chairman Thompson, thank you very much. Chairman Beverly, Chairman Tradu, thank you so much for letting Washington Gas come up here today for the Cybersecurity Conference. I'd like to introduce some of the folks I have with me. I have Senior Director Charles Jackson, who's in charge of our gas operations for Washington Gas. I also have our CISO, Mike Ewan, as well as Eric Eller and Aaron Kahn, who are from our legal counsel department to help us out here today. Go into some organizational structure. If we go to the agenda slide, please. Thank you. So we'll break this out into two parts, really. We'll talk about some of our organizational structure and frameworks. Our enterprise team give you an overall perspective of how we approach that, and then dig deep into our cybersecurity aspect, our protect function, as we call it. Next slide, please. A little background on who we are. So Washington Gas is a regulated utility here in the District of Columbia, Virginia, and Maryland. We were founded in 1848, so have been around for a little while. We're a leading provider for safe, affordable, and reliable natural gas services. Our headquarters here are in Washington, D.C. We proudly serve about 1.2 million residential, commercial, and industrial customers. The next one. For the high-level overview of our enterprise team structure, our IT team, we refer to it as our digital team. Our digital team is really broken out into four parts. We have the plan, build, run, and protect functions within the organization. This is how we approach our IT. So throughout that, we use the standard procedure in cybersecurity to say bake it in instead of bolting it on. So we bake in our cybersecurity across the plan, build, and run model. So we are in there from the initiation, and we look at opportunities and risks that are in there. And we take the plan portion and we look at budgeting and any planning in there and make sure we can include our cybersecurity elements within that at the planning phases. Then we bring that into the build function as well to make sure we're building in all the cybersecurity controls that we need to best protect the network. Then we move on to the run, and that's our monitoring piece of it. We monitor what we built there to make sure that we're not seeing any suspicious or malicious activity within that operation and continually monitor that throughout. And protect, again, is our cybersecurity function within this. And we serve a role across that operation there. For example, if we're looking at AI is a very hot topic right now. It has a lot of opportunities. It also has a lot of risks. So there are a lot of things we have to consider around AI, and we're going to use it where it makes sense for us. So if it has any aspect of it that can help us improve the safety, reliability, or affordability for gas services, we're going to take a look at that and see if that makes sense. We have a policy as well around AI that helps us guide when we want to use it, things that we need to consider from a risk perspective. It could be anything from some type of bias within the AI where the AI comes from. Is it within the US? Where does the data go? Does the state use any data within the AI? Same thing with cloud. We use it where it's going to make sense. If it's going to improve our operations, improve the service to the customer, we're going to take a look at it and leverage that and bring that into our plan, build, and run model and put our security elements in from the beginning. We also want to make sure it takes an alignment with our NIST controls. So as we look at these opportunities that are out there, and there are a lot of goodness within AI and within cloud, we want to make sure it's going to follow along with our NIST controls and allow us to put a framework around that. Next slide, please. Our cybersecurity team structure, to dig a little deeper here into our protect function. We have three main delivery areas here. So we have secure design, secure standards, and secure operations. So within secure design, we take the opportunity to get in there and effectively put in all those elements in the beginning, so they're baked in instead of bolted on. We want to follow some secure standards within there. So we want to follow best practices and follow our control framework as well. And then for secure operations, this is effective monitoring. This is where we want to make sure we're detecting any anomalies out there on our network that might be happening within our data, within our systems, and look for emerging threats, suspicious or malicious activity, and mitigate those threats as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. Now we'll dig a little deeper still into cybersecurity. Within that secure design element there, we have an architectural review board that we bring all our potential applications to or new improvements to. And our architects review this. And one of our key architects within there is our cybersecurity architect. And he reviews a lot of these new plans that come out, looking from a cybersecurity perspective to say, do we have the right controls in place for this? What are we going to need to add in? Is there any consideration around other frameworks or regulatory requirements that we need to bring in play? And he'll look at that and make sure we have that in from the beginning. We follow a lot of secure design principles, and that's to make sure that we're using the best practices around this, following recommendations for new technology, for example, like for AI and for cloud. We also handle exception management. So occasionally there are times when something might have to be handled a little bit differently. So we manage those exceptions and mitigate the risk to those exceptions. Next slide, please. Under our secure standards, second pillar there. So they cover our policies and standards, our business resilience, our vulnerability management, and our cybersecurity awareness. So these key areas here for the governance and risk piece, the policies and standards portion, there's internal and external requirements that we have to comply with. So they could be from the public service commissions, they could come from TSA, for example, or our own corporate internal digital policies, and we make sure we're aligning to those standards. We have a business resilience function as well. And our controls that we have in place, our cybersecurity controls, are geared toward known threats. Our resilience program is really towards those unknown threats, things that you don't know are out there yet, things that could happen without any warning, fire, flood, earthquake, things like that. So resilience programs like having a spare tire for your car. If I go out to my car tomorrow morning, my tire's flat. If I don't have a spare, I'm stuck. I'm not going to work today. But if I have a spare tire, I'm back on the road pretty quickly and on the way to work. Vulnerability management. So this is a constant process with us because everything is changing. Vendors are updating their software. We're improving. So we're continually assessing for vulnerabilities within the organization. And new vulnerabilities come out very frequently, almost daily. So we're constantly assessing for this and then mitigating those risks as they come up. We prioritize them, look at which ones are most critical, and address those first. So cybersecurity awareness, users are one of our best elements within our defenses, in our line of defense in depth. So training our users well is very key for us. They really help us identify when there are things that are out of normal for them, people who, communications that may come in that don't seem normal for them. And we work very hard to train them to look for things like this and then report them to us so we can address them quickly. Some recent developments that make our systems less vulnerable are we've invested really regularly into our cybersecurity program. We've updated a lot of our governance policies and standards to get consistent delivery and execution. We've enhanced our user onboarding and offboarding. We've upgraded our data handling security. For example, how do we handle our data? How do we protect our emails and information that goes back and forth on email? Our business continuity and disaster recovery impacts, we've worked through that. That's part of our resilience program as well. We've also enhanced our real-time monitoring capabilities, expanded that capability, giving us much better visibility across the networks. What has changed in our risk management plan since the last time we've come in? There's no real significant change. We're still following the risk-based approach where we identify those risks, we prioritize those risks and a risk register where we track them, and then we build in mitigations and into our operations and our projects for this upcoming year as we work through that. Next slide, please. dig a little bit deeper into some of the frameworks. So frameworks are really important in cybersecurity, and picking one and following one is very key. And a framework is really like a paint by numbers kit, if you've ever seen those, where you can take those controls that are in that suite, look at which ones are applicable to your organization, to your environment, and begin to implement those. And then you work to mature them in there. So as you would fill in a paint by numbers, you look to see, is there anywhere we don't have paint yet? Let's invest in that. Is there anywhere we need more paint? Let's put more there. And so we'll put more time and effort into that. So it's a continual maturation process as we work through that. So we'll start by implementing the controls that really reduce the risk first, or reduce the risk most first. And then we're going to assess that control performance regularly, and then look at maturity periodically. And we look at our cyber control maturity annually. That's an assessment we do annually. And we look to see how it climbs. And having a regular framework, especially like in this framework, gives us the ability to really do that in a controllable fashion. It's a very popular framework, so it's been around for a while. So it's very easy to assess and to show that growth year over year. It's very consistent. And it just standardizes your approach across the board. Let's see. So we have a couple other standards as well we follow besides this. We also follow the TSA security directives and the CISA operational technology guidelines. Those are very industry specific, especially for the gas industry. So NIST is very broad, applies to most all IT operations there, whereas the TSA security directive requirements and the CISA operational guidelines are really focused towards the gas industry. So we overlay those two frameworks together. There are some complementary aspects of that that give us even improved security over that. How often do we assess our controls? We'll do a maturity assessment annually. We also do the TSA security assessments. Those are annually as well, and they come in and work with us on those assessments. We do penetration testing for IT and our digital network 5 to 10 times a year. And we also perform frequent vulnerability scanning. And as I said, vulnerabilities are coming out all the time. So we're constantly scanning for new vulnerabilities to come out to see if that affects our organization there. Next slide, please. So within this being a very popular, very common framework, have been any changes recently? They just moved from version 1.0 to 2.0. And key to this is adding in the govern perspective of that. And we had a governance program before, but this really kind of codifies it within the framework and gives us some very specific controls around governance that we can work with within there. And they've moved a lot of the identity element over into govern, which puts it there. And the identify aspect that's out there now within the control categories is really more about identifying risks. So it's part of our risk assessment plan now. Majority of the identify, like I said, had gone over to the govern piece there. So we've also added in the requirements there for recover, and that's really around post-incident lessons learned, making sure that when something does happen, you capture lessons learned. System restoration verification, making sure it's up and working, and then preservation of any data. Next slide. Now we're going to move on to our third pillar there within cybersecurity, which is our cyber operations. So this is part of one of our delivery areas here within the main area. And our cybersecurity operations is responsible for detecting and mitigating credible threats against Washington Gas. So we have a 24/7 security operations center. It runs all day, every day. And they're monitoring for anomalies, suspicious activity, malicious activity within Washington Gas, and then beginning an incident response process around those where they triage it, they perform analysis around these events, look to see, is it a false positive, is it a true positive, and then they begin a response process around that. We also pull in our threat intelligence. This is really used to enhance our controls. So the threatscape changes all the time, and we're always adjusting our controls a little bit to best detect those new and emerging threats that come out. Could be from new areas, could be new threat actors, but we take those tactics, techniques, and procedures and bake them back into our controls to better identify these in the future moving forward. And access management, and this is a key one and part of zero trust as well. There's a saying now that identity is the new perimeter. So you think about all the identities that you might have. You have one for your work email, you have one for your personal email, you have ones for your streaming and your online purchasing. All this identity is floating out there now. This is a very, very key area to put a lot of focus in right now, because this is how you access resources and data and systems. So we're very focused on identity and access management right now as well. Next slide, please. So when we do have something that, an event of interest that we investigate and it turns out to be an incident, for example, we have a process around this. And this could be for anything. It's not just cybersecurity. So, Washington Gas is a utility. So we have all kinds of, threats and risks that could be out there that are beyond cyber. So we have a crisis management plan that covers broadly anything that might happen at Washington Gas. And so we as cyber can engage that. So some significant incidents that happen are coordinated by our crisis management teams, and they engage our enterprise functions, our subject matter experts, and could be in legal or communications or regulatory, and we can bring them in to help work with us on resolving a problem, identifying best course of action, and moving forward to resolution. So cybersecurity, we have our own separate incident response plan as well, that's part of the larger framework. And we have playbooks to support incident response for specific threats. And if we have complex incidents requiring a lot of hands-on, we have the ability to leverage outside specialists to bring them in to help assist with that. We also perform exercises regularly. Exercises are a fantastic way to test your people, processes, and technology. So a great use of time there. So cyber incidents are recorded and tracked to closure, and we capture lessons learned, part of the new NIST framework piece. So do we engage in, when do we engage law enforcement really? If we have an event of interest that after investigation proves to be a true positive, it actually is an incident, say a breach, for example, that's when we're going to engage law enforcement. We're going to bring in the crisis response team, and we'll pick out our subject matter experts from legal and maybe regulatory, and they're going to help us engage with law enforcement, and we'll provide the necessary information back, the details to support that response effort. The same process we follow for regulatory reporting, and also the same one for public notification. We would bring in our subject matter experts from our communications team. We have a great group of subject matter experts across this multidisciplinary response process that are very helpful for when we have an incident like that. How do we treat our facilities that are out there? For example, if we're going to have a response effort around particular facilities, we do have a priority around these, and we have a high level of cyber protection across all our corporate functions. We do take a risk-based approach, though, when we're looking at facilities. So, for example, if a facility serves 1,000 customers, that's a little bit more of a priority than one that maybe serves 10. So we do look at that from a prioritization perspective as we're doing a response activity, and look for the ones that are going to restore the most customers as quickly as possible. So we if a cyber attack manifests itself into a physical action, what do we do with that? We have not seen any cyber attacks manifest into physical activity yet, but that is always a possibility. So it's always in the back of our mind to keep that awareness there that could happen, or that some physical activity could be the result of a cyber activity. We find that out later, but we do take very good care around that to understand what is happening and if that has an impact. And we would take that attack and understand better how to protect our networks and systems further down the road after that. But again, we have not seen any cyber attacks manifest themselves into physical attacks at this time. We are aware that can be something that could happen. So who do we engage with from a law enforcement perspective as well, and who do we engage with in the general area here? So obviously CISA, which is our Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, our Transportation Security Agency partners at the Pipeline Security section of TSA Surface Ops, the Washington Field Office for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, of course, the DC Fusion Center. We are not an electrical utility, so we are not a member of the PJM ISO, so we don't really have any notification requirements with them. And if we should, you have to look at that, identity as well, as we talked about that being the kind of the new perimeter. What do you do if you have third-party attacks? Because every organization out there has third parties they engage with. So we have contractual language with our third parties that allows us to requires them to report to us within 24 hours if they should have a cybersecurity attack, and then we take that back and we assess does that have any impact to us or not. Next slide, please. Okay, so we strive to maintain readiness around this. So we have our incident response plan. We perform a lot of testing around this for cybersecurity. So we test our processes, communications, technologies, and our people. We have an executive tabletop exercise that we do annually, and that's with our CEO and his direct reports. Kind of gives them an idea of what to expect if we were to have something. How would you be engaged? What kind of information would we bring you? What kind of decisions might you need to make? So we exercise them annually on that. We also have business continuity tabletop exercises, obviously part of the resilience process. So we do that annually as well to make sure we have the resilience around critical business processes. We also have compliance tabletops. TSA's tabletop exercises are a perfect example that we have at least once a year with TSA, and they come in for attendance during those exercises. We perform technical tabletops, and this is to test our tools, to make sure our teams can get in there, operate the tools are functioning as they should, and they're giving us an effective response capability within that. And then we also have incident initiation exercises. And we do this about twice a month at random. And that's like a fire drill. So we put the call out and make sure we can get everybody we need to on the line very quickly. Everyone's technology is working right. They can get online and we can begin a discussion should we actually have an event that needs further investigation. So it also ensures our contact information is up to date. Very key elements there. With that, that concludes Washington Gas's briefing. Thank you all again for the opportunity to come speak before you.
Okay, thank you as well. I want to start my questions where you ended and you talked about as well, Mr. Franklin, and that's really around the space of tabletop exercises and kind of the preparedness factor. Would like for you to talk more about the types of tabletop exercises you guys do, and then specifically if you could talk about your engagement with local government around those tabletop exercises. I know in your slide you talked about your connection with DC Fusion Center that's out of HCEMA, but just really talk about how that notification and partnership works. And then also speak about how the commission would then be involved in any type of cybersecurity breach or attempted breach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to address that. So like our colleagues, we formally and completely exercise our cybersecurity incident response program, which we call our CSIRP, through 2 annual drills, one focused primarily on electric operations and one primarily on gas. And these are coordinated across multiple functions that include incident identification and classification all the way up through recovery operations and regulatory reporting of the incident as necessary based on the particular incident and impacted systems. Additionally, as part of that process, we have our security incident response team that supports our exercises that are conducted by various functional leads, whether they be in IT, OT, and the utility businesses, during which we have a lot of educations on the process to make sure people know what their expected roles and responsibilities are during the process, so that when an actual incident does occur, people aren't trying to find the manual on a dusty shelf somewhere to figure out, hey, what do I do? Who do I need to call? Where do I go as well? And that's a subset of our overall process. Our CERT includes a cross-section of our trained personnel, represent systems in use all over our businesses across the utility. So we make sure the right people are trained and aware at all times to be able to respond accordingly. And that includes legal, our 24/7 security operations center, any of our regulatory folks, including our executives as well in that chain. And in addition to drills focused primarily on cybersecurity, we work closely with our business continuity and our crisis management teams at the corporate level to plan and execute corporate and executive level drills and tabletop exercises to test our employees' understanding of the processes that we train for throughout the year, as well as the procedures and our ability to effectively respond. As I mentioned earlier, we had one such exercise last night, and we're waiting for that after action report today to see how effective that was. This includes our biennial participation in everyone's favorite GridX exercises coming up this year in November. PEPCO is a very active participant in that, and we look forward to participating in that this year as well. We also do individual business continuity test plans are conducted at both the system and the business level on a recurring basis to make sure we can recover individual systems, as well as the business itself should we have a larger type of interruption of business service. And as well, we have after action reports and lessons learned that are raised to the highest levels of leadership to make sure that if there are gaps, we are addressing them so that we do not have those same gaps should something similar happen the next time. We do coordinate our GridX activities with PJM and with the commission as necessary, and that they do include various cyber and physical scenarios or injects. We've been participating since in 2023 with GridX 7, and then we are again on the record to participate, I should say, in November in 2025. We include operators at all levels, from the transmission control rooms, transmission operations support, and we do remain compliant at all times with PJM cyber protocols, and we coordinate on an annual basis in the fall with those protocols and requirements.
With our tabletop exercises, we leverage that broad suite of subject matter experts that we discussed there. And if we should have the need to escalate to a regulatory body or to law enforcement, we'll engage those subject matter experts to help assist with that. We may, we're the cybersecurity experts. We're not the communications experts. I'm certainly not the legal expert. But we do leverage them extensively for our exercises. We'll work with gas operations. We'll work with our regular IT people on some of these exercises and determine what's the best course of action from our perspective. But as soon as we start talking about outside notifications, that's going to go over to our subject matter experts who are going to handle that for us. And it's part of their plans as well to engage either the public service commissions from a regulatory perspective or the law enforcement entities that within the jurisdiction, or it could be other regulatory reporting bodies that we have out there.
And just one quick follow-up. I believe WGL, Mr. Morrison, during your presentation, you talked about the cyber attacks are not physical, or they haven't manifested into any physical harm. To the extent that you can say, when you do have these either attempted cyber attacks or actual successful ones, what seems to be the main thrust? What are they looking for typically? To the extent you can say.
I probably would defer, Mr. Chairman, on that one. I don't want to give out any additional information around that. We'd be glad to have a side conversation with you at some point.
I just have a basic question. For people like me and members of the audience out there somewhere that may not know what a tabletop exercise actually is, you don't have to give me a simulation. Can you just describe it?
I sure can. A tabletop exercise, you ever played a board game? That's a lot like it. You'll have some rules set up for the exercise. There'll be some scenarios that you're given, and then you'll work through those scenarios, testing your communication, testing your problem solving, really. It's a really great exercise to bring everyone together. You're not actually hands on keyboard. You're not really doing anything, but you're having a discussion around how do we handle this problem? How do we prioritize the most key areas we need to address first? And then what kind of outcomes are we trying to derive from this? And who maybe we need to engage from the outside? So it's a really great opportunity to take a given scenario that might be very common, or even a curveball scenario that is totally out of the blue, and say, how would you solve this? If you've ever seen some of those TV shows or reality shows where you have the survivors out there and suddenly they take something away from them, or they give them something new and try to figure out what are they going to do with this with the best advantage. It's kind of like that. You'll have some kind of scenario and then you'll work through resolution of that scenario.
Okay. Both of you are multi-jurisdictional companies, and we're a one jurisdiction commission. And you mentioned addressing local regulations and requirements. What I'd really like to know is, does that pose a challenge for you when you have to comply with different regulatory schemes in different jurisdictions, and how do you handle it? Maybe you just deal with the most onerous jurisdiction and let everything else fall into line. I don't know, just ask.
Well, Mr. Beverly, I think I would defer to my leadership to best answer that question. I'm the cybersecurity guy, and I believe I might not comment on that.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. I honestly don't see a lot of conflicts. Sometimes there are slight differences in the intention and the wording and maybe the interpretation of the regulations, but I think given the flexible nature of our controls frameworks that we've adopted, that's speaking on behalf of Exelon and the utilities we represent, we are usually able to meet the spirit and objective of those rules and regulations with our control framework without having to specialize a particular, this is the PEPCO control framework versus the BGE control framework. Personally, I haven't had to go down the rabbit hole in my role of developing customizable control frameworks or scenarios, if you will, for the jurisdictions in which we operate. I can't say that won't happen, but I'm hoping that it doesn't.
Yeah. And my last question would be, is there something that you need from this commission that you don't have that would make your job simpler?
It's an excellent question. May I take that back and bring that to our leadership and ask maybe a little more broadly across our subject matter experts?
Sure, a thoughtful answer is better than one off the cuff.
Sorry, say again, sir?
A thoughtful answer would be better than one off the cuff. So yes, okay.
And there may be other groups within our teams that would have some additional information they would like to have included in that.
Love the opportunity to provide a thoughtful answer.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and let me compliment both of you on first, excellent presentations, and then secondarily, understanding as Commissioner Beverly just said, your work in multiple jurisdictions, and I know how complicated that must be. Let me ask maybe the opposite side of the coin of Commissioner Beverly's question. Both of your companies are here in the District of Columbia, connected to every resident and business here in the city. Some of those businesses, quite frankly, with, I'm sure, high degrees of sensitivity of the information that's flowing in and out of them. The White House right down the street, the Capitol, less than a mile from here, the FBI building, wherever it'll sit over the next couple of years, it'll be within the service territory. Critical infrastructure. My house, I'm a customer for both of you. Do you guys ever have lunch? Talk to each other about best practices, things you're seeing here in the region? How you might be responding?
It's a very timely question, Mr. Commissioner. We just actually had that discussion in the lobby while we were waiting to be brought up, exchanging, hey, we'd love to get together, talk about best practices, what we're seeing, especially in the TSA gas space. I could say at Exelon, we do meet with many of our peers informally to talk about such things as you brought up in your question. And we would certainly welcome the opportunity to meet with our colleagues over lunch or coffee and discuss best practices, what we're seeing, exchange information in a highly collaborative way. Absolutely.
I mean, understand that a lot of you have the exact same customers and
Absolutely.
activity to them. Good. My next question revolves around your supply chains. And this is for both of you as well. Clearly, you talked about the imperative of, maintaining, the work that you do and directly with your customers. But with third-party providers and suppliers, how are you making sure that a similar level of security protocols are maintained within those supply chains?
Probably take that one. We do have, contractual language around that, and we have third-party risk assessments that we perform with our third parties. That becomes part of the process in selecting companies.
Very similar response. We have a specific contractual language that we hold our third-party suppliers to, and we have an extensive third-party security risk assessment process that is conducted, and our third parties must remain what we call in a green status to continue to do business with Exelon and any of its utility opcos.
Okay. Does that potentially frustrate or compromise is not the right word. If you're trying to deal with a variety of different suppliers, all of them may not have some of them may not have the requisite security protocols that you guys have. Is that one of those things that might hamper your dealing with a greater number of suppliers or things?
It could potentially.
I'll speak honestly. Yes, sir. Yes, Commissioner, it does. But I found it also helps those suppliers understand the level at which they need to operate to serve the utilities that provide these critical services, especially in the nation's capital region. And we find that they ultimately learn from us and up their game at the end of the day. And I think it leads to stronger partnerships with, I can't say all, but many of those suppliers.
Okay.
At the end of the day.
I would concur.
Okay. All right. Great. Final question. I was very impressed with your articulation of your work with the Walter Reed Academy. That's bringing in a number of young people in the community and then bringing them into the fold within the company. I asked this question on behalf of a number of college students that I see out here in the audience today. Are there other opportunities for people who may not be coming through the academy per se, but might be coming out of, we have probably 7 or 8 local universities in the area, and how they might engage with your companies and become new members of your teams?
Yeah, we do have a summer intern program that we leverage as well. So especially looking for the local talent within the local colleges here.
Exelon and our utilities have a similar summer internship as well as a full year, what we call year up apprenticeship, as well as internship programs We look for the local colleges in all of our jurisdictions as well.
All right, all right. Thank you very much. That concludes my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I do have a couple more questions, and because we can't talk these days without bringing up AI and talking a little bit more about it. I think both of you kind of touched on AI, more of from the threat point of view in terms of um, actors using AI to increase the sophistication of their attacks. But I'm a little bit more curious about the usage of AI within your utilities, not only just by the utility themselves, but also around employees using AI to do their work. And so, wanted to hear a little bit about the guardrails, or hopefully not the lack thereof of guardrails, but guardrails and procedures that you guys have within the company, within your respective utilities around the usage of AI, and how you're governing employees' usage of AI, ensuring that confidential information isn't getting out into the public domain.
I'm trying to think how to catch this in a public forum. We have very restrictive guardrails at Exelon and our utility opcos regarding how information is permitted to be used. We have very specific AI applications that are permitted to be used internally. Any additional AI applications or platforms that wish to be considered for use must go through a rigorous review and requirements review process as well, not just by the security organization, but by other stakeholders as well. And given, to your point, the significant and unique concerns around AI, we've stood up an innovation AI center of excellence, excuse me, to provide some strategic guidance and thought leadership around the use of AI across our enterprise, where all proposed AI solutions are discussed and vetted before they even are permitted to go through that review. So there is a lot of review and consideration given. We also are very actively involved in data governance and data lifecycle management activities, which are critical when you consider some of the challenges with AI. You must have control of your data before you just open up the floodgate that is artificial intelligence. So those are key activities in which we are engaged, and we have put very tight and narrow guardrails around the data that is permitted to be used and what is not permitted to be used from both I'll call it administrative control as well as a technical control perspective. The things that you might try to do, you just will not be able to do if it's not permitted. And then there's just best practices that through our security awareness program, you should know you're not supposed to do.
I would mirror the statement the same. We would add that there's a big appetite for AI, and there are a lot of opportunities out there. We really definitely need to keep a close eye on the risks that are out there, whether they're using the data, where the data is stored, where the data goes to, how long do they retain the data. So these are all elements we take into account as we look at requests to come in. They come in from our employees to leverage an AI capability. So we take a good hard look at it and decide, is this something that really benefits us from a delivery perspective to the customers and from an efficiency perspective and a safety perspective? If not, it really is not something we really want to pursue.
Well, that concludes our questions. I want to thank each of you for being here today and participating. This is always a very informative discussion, and we thank you for your time. And with nothing else to be said, we will go ahead and adjourn for the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. If it's relevant to the topic, yes.
One moment.